Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome.
In our top story, Iran is feverishly working to obtain deadly weapons while engaging in negotiations with the United States. The rogue Islamic Republic has reportedly ordered enough ammonium perchlorate from China to build at least 800 ballistic missiles. This highly explosive chemical is used in solid rocket fuel and is the same material that caused a massive explosion at the port of Shahid Raji in April. Tehran continues to call for the total annihilation of the Jewish state, while simultaneously claiming that its nuclear program is meant for peaceful purposes. Experts believe that Tehran is on the brink of nuclear breakout, and Israel and the United States have repeatedly threatened to use force to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons.
The United States has officially announced that it will not renew the mandate of UNIFIL, the United Nations interim force in Lebanon. This so-called peacekeeping unit has failed to achieve its primary mission of preventing the transfer of Iranian weapons to Hezbollah, its proxy terrorist army in Beirut. Despite the presence of 13,000 UNIFIL troops, Hezbollah was able to build up its positions near Israel's northern border unchecked. Hezbollah stockpiled thousands of advanced missiles and explosive drones on UNIFIL's watch. On October 8, 2023, just one day after Hamas launched its genocidal war, Hezbollah unleashed barrages of rockets and explosive drones on the Jewish state. This attack resulted in the evacuation of more than 70,000 civilians from their homes in northern Israel. The terror group fired more than 8,000 rockets into Israel while UNIFIL forces stood by. Jerusalem has backed the decision to end UNIFIL's mandate, saying it is a necessary step in restoring true security and holding Iranian proxies accountable.
The White House has imposed sanctions against 4 International Criminal Court judges. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that these individuals actively engaged in The Hague's illegitimate and baseless actions targeting America and its close ally Israel. Rubio was referring to the ICC's issuance of arrest warrants for Israeli leaders on fabricated charges of war crimes and genocide in Gaza. Rubio said that the court has abused its power, infringing on the sovereignty and national security of the United States and its allies. He warned that America will take whatever actions it deems necessary to protect its sovereignty and that of Israel from illegitimate actions by the International Criminal Court. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said, "This step reflects the seriousness of the threat we face from the ICC's politicization and its abuse of power."
The Israeli Navy has launched its first-ever direct attack from sea against the Iranian-backed Houthi terrorists in Yemen. The rebel-controlled Hodeidah port in western Yemen was targeted by Israeli forces from 1,800 kilometers away. This operation marks the first time Israel has utilized its naval firepower to strike the Houthis. The attack destroyed infrastructure at the port used to receive shipments of Iranian weapons. This action comes in response to unrelenting missile and drone attacks on the Jewish state from Yemen. Defense Minister Israel Katz commended the Navy's successful operation. He said Israel's long arm, both in the air and at sea, will reach everywhere.
The British House of Commons is considering a petition to ban kosher slaughter in the United Kingdom. The biblical books of Deuteronomy and Leviticus detail the dietary laws, describing foods that are forbidden and those that are permissible. It also commands that kosher animals intended to be eaten must be killed in accordance with Jewish dietary law. This requires that the animal be killed swiftly, painlessly, and that it be drained of all blood. These laws, known as shechita, have been in practice for thousands of years. Now, members of the British government have declared that biblically mandated kosher slaughter is barbaric and incompatible with modern British values. Jews living in the United Kingdom say that the petition is discriminatory and is a sign of eroding religious freedom in the UK.
Pro-Palestinian activists in Brussels reenacted the October 7th Hamas massacre of more than 1,200 people in Israel in a disturbing display of anti-Semitism. The city hosted its third annual Resistance Festival, featuring actors playing Israeli soldiers gunning down innocent people and masked men dressed as armed Palestinian terrorists pretending to kill Jews. Crowds flooded the streets of the Belgian capital, calling for the total destruction of Israel. This disgusting example of Jew hatred was condemned by Belgian leaders who appealed to their government to act swiftly to stop the rampant anti-Semitism that has taken over their country.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has announced the appointment of Reverend Dr. Johnny Moore as its executive chairman. This U.S.-backed program aims to safely provide humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza while bypassing Hamas. Moore is an evangelical Christian leader who serves on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. He invited other nations to join GHF in serving the people of Gaza with dignity, respect, and compassion. GHF launched its operation in Gaza in late May and has already provided more than 10 million meals to the residents of the Hamas-controlled enclave. This initiative has been instrumental in breaking the terror group's hold on the food supply and therefore its control of the people.
The National Center for Public Policy Research has filed a lawsuit against United Airlines over its boycott of the Jewish state. The conservative think tank demanded access to United's internal records to determine if the airline violated its legal responsibilities to shareholders by caving in to anti-Israel pressure from its union and partners. Before the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack on Israel, United Airlines operated 28 weekly flights to Tel Aviv. By April of this year, the airline had resumed only 14 weekly flights, resulting in a 50% reduction in service. A lawyer for the plaintiffs explained that this decision cost the airline about $1.6 billion in lost earnings annually, bringing the total losses of nearly $3 billion since the war began. The legal team released a statement saying shareholders have a right to know if United Airlines joined a silent boycott against Israel. Just 2 hours after the suit was filed, United Airlines announced that it was resuming its service to Ben Gurion Airport.
Jews and Christians in Dallas, Texas were outraged when threats of violence prompted the cancellation of a pro-Israel summit. Former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman confirmed that jihadist threats prompted authorities to cancel the Israel summit, which had already sold over 1,000 tickets. Organizers said that American pro-Hamas groups issued public calls to target the symposium. The Palestinian Youth Movement Dallas joined forces with other pro-terror organizations, declaring that Texas unwelcomes the Genocide Summit. This cancellation highlights the growing threat of anti-Semitism and the efforts to silence support for Israel in America.
The Ecuadorian National Assembly has launched a parliamentary Israel Allies caucus. Member of Parliament Andres Castillo will chair this influential legislative group in Quito. He welcomed the announcement, saying the creation of the Ecuador-Israel Allies Caucus marks a significant step in deepening the relationship between Ecuador and Israel. The South American country has been an ally of the Jewish state since its founding in 1948. President Daniel Noboa recently visited the Holy Land and inaugurated Ecuador's Innovation Center in Jerusalem. The Israel Allies Foundation is at the forefront of the faith-based diplomacy movement. It operates nearly 60 caucuses and governments across 6 continents with a network of over 1,500 legislators. Josh Reinstein, the president of the IAF, said, at a time when Israel faces rising hostility and anti-Semitism is spreading globally, Ecuador's stand for truth is courageous and deeply meaningful.
Israeli researchers have uncovered a 1,700-year-old Roman sarcophagus in the ancient city of Caesarea. This unprecedented discovery was uncovered during excavations conducted by the Israel Antiquities Authority in the city that King Herod built in tribute to Rome. The intricately engraved marble sarcophagus is the first of its kind to be found in Israel. It features carvings of ancient Roman deities and mythological figures. The Israel Antiquities Authority has announced plans to exhibit this stunning artifact to the public. The Land of Israel Museum will host the official unveiling of the sarcophagus in mid-June.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Heinz. He's the International Director of March of Life. Heinz, thanks for being on the show.
It's great to be here.
Tell our viewers a little about what is March of Life.
So March of Life is an international movement that started in 2007, 18 years ago, in the little town of Tübingen, when we did a March of Life on the trails of a death march. That's where the name comes from. From there, it has spread out, and now we do marches every year, this year in over 100 places in 22 nations, mobilizing thousands of people to raise their voices, to go to the streets for Israel and against anti-Semitism.
What's interesting about March of Life is that the founders and some of the members are the grandchildren or great-grandchildren of Nazis who perpetrated the Holocaust, yet you march to commemorate the Holocaust. Why is it important for you to make atonement?
Absolutely, because that's the whole basis of March of Life. Because before we started, many within our local community, we found out that our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, they were actually Nazis, just as you said. They were involved in killing Jews and robbing Jews and taking away Jewish property and looking away, doing nothing. And when we found out, it really shocked us, and it really shook us. And that's why we started to do that march, because of course, I mean, we've changed. We've become from foes, we've turned to friends. That's what happened. I mean, but still, that's our history, and we feel that's a responsibility, not a guilt, but it's a responsibility today to speak out when we see these things starting to happen again.
Not only do you memorialize the Holocaust, but you make it a point to stand with Israel today. Why is it important for people in your organization and Bible-believing Christians around the world to stand with Israel?
First of all, what you said, like, it's easy to stand, and that's what people say, to stand with dead Jews, because a lot of Holocaust remembrance is about the past, and that's very, very important, no question. But of course, living Jews, living is the strongest expression of Jewish life today is the state of Israel. So if we want to be for Israel, we need to stand with the state of Israel. So that's so important. And of course, for Bible-believing Christians, believing the Bible, it's double important, because Israel, of course, we see the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. So it's important to stand also with the state of Israel today, for Christians especially.
You live in Germany, and we're witnessing since October 7th an incredible rise of anti-Semitism, not just in Germany, but all over Europe. How do you explain that?
I think it's never been away. It's been there all the time, because like in Germany, in Europe, in the whole Western world, I mean, anti-Semitism is deeply there in our culture, also, unfortunately, in our Christian churches. We see this since the church fathers, that anti-Semitism is there, and it's been there all the time. Of course, there have been ups and downs, but so we see it coming up again. And it's like the special thing in Germany is like the indifference again as well. It's like of the majority, that they don't speak up. Probably they think different, but they don't speak up. And that's also the problem in the churches. Probably you don't find it good that Jews are being attacked, but you don't do anything about that. And that's the problem. That was the problem in the 30s. That was the problem in that time, that the good people didn't speak up and that the Christians didn't speak up. And so today it's a challenge for Christians, specifically for Christians. If you see anti-Semitism in your own country, in your own family, in your own surrounding, you need to do something. You need to act.
This time around, there's a big difference that Israel is a state. The Jewish people have a refuge. We have a government. We have an army. We can fight from ourselves. Yet what we're seeing in Europe is that a lot of these countries are being taken over by radical Islamic components. Do you see this as a fear of Europe going forward?
It's true, because a lot of the anti-Semitism, it comes, of course, from radical Muslims that speak up. So we see that in Berlin. But the problem, I think, the even bigger problem is that still the majority part of the society, which of course is not Muslims, that they don't speak up. And that's the problem. And that's what I see as a big challenge for us, because we can only influence the whole question about immigration in a certain way, but we can do something in the way we speak up publicly in our own surrounding, and I think that's the challenge for us.
You believe in Genesis 12:3 that God will bless those that bless thee and curse those that curse thee. Are you concerned that these European countries that are standing against Israel are going to be cursed?
I think it really is is something that doesn't benefit your country if you don't speak up for Israel. And that's something that's so important. And we believe that that the countries that stand with Israel will be blessed. And this is also, of course, important on a political level, and specifically in Europe. So like we are from Germany, we have a new government now, and it looks like we'll have to see that they stand more with Israel than the government before. So we hope that will stay like that, and we'll talk to politicians to make sure that it goes that way. But of course, in Europe, we also see governments that are absolutely anti-Israel, and that's a big problem. I think it's not good for the country if that's the case.
We see that where there's Christians, there's support for Israel. Yet Europe is becoming a lot less Christian. I just saw a statistic that Brussels has 80% or more of people under 18 aren't Christian anymore. So is there a future for Christianity in Europe?
And that's a challenge, and it's absolutely true. But I think a key for revival of Christianity is that we embrace our Jewish roots. We believe that's so important to have an authority to speak out publicly and make Christianity grow again. I think there's a key in embracing the Jewish roots and understanding that that's where we come from.
March of Life is bringing hundreds of people to Israel during wartime. Why is it so important to be here physically?
I think that in Israel, a lot of people are so distressed, shocked, traumatized, whatever you want to call it, by the war and by what happened. And also a lot of people have in Israel, like on the streets, they have the feeling that no one is standing with them. But actually there's thousands and millions of Bible-believing Christians that love Israel. So we come here to show that on the streets in Israel. And that's why it's so important to be here right now.
Heinz, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
So wherever you are, raise your voice and don't be silent about Israel, and don't be silent if you encounter anti-Semitism. Speak out in your family, in your churches, teach about Israel, the importance of Israel, and go to the streets. Maybe you want to do a March of Life. You can go to a website to find out more about that, but speak out and don't be silent.
Thank you, Heinz, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now the truth from Zion.
Mahmoud Abbas, also known as Abu Mazen, has been one of the most prominent figures in Palestinian politics for decades. He replaced the infamous terror leader Yasser Arafat as head of the Palestinian Authority in 2005. He has maintained his grip on power, controlling the lives of Palestinians living in Judea and Samaria. While Abbas is portrayed as being a more moderate voice in comparison to Hamas, his public remarks time and again reveal his true character as an anti-Semite and a terror leader. Throughout his time in office, Abbas has been candid about his desire to weaken the Jewish people and deny their history and connection to the land of Israel. While pursuing a doctorate in the Soviet Union in the 1980s, Abbas wrote a thesis that questioned the extent of the Holocaust. His 1982 dissertation, titled The Other Side, The Secret Relationship Between Nazism and Zionism, was a PhD paper which blatantly denied the Holocaust of 6 million Jews and promoted insane blood libels, such as the Zionists worked with the Nazis to get Jews to immigrate to what was at that time British Mandatory Palestine. Just 2 years later, in a study based on his dissertation published in Arabic, Abbas cited known Holocaust denier Robert Farison and promoted the idea that gas chambers and crematoriums in Nazi Europe were not for murdering people, but they were only for incinerating bodies out of concern for the spread of disease and infection. Fast forward 40 years, about a month before the October 7th massacre, during a conference with the Palestinian Fatah Party leadership, Abbas tried to explain that Jews were killed during World War II because they brought it upon themselves. Abbas went on to claim that the genocide of Jews had to do with usury and money lending, and that the Holocaust was not about anti-Semitism. His statements were condemned by the international diplomatic community, but only 2 weeks later. He's an outright supporter of terrorism against Jews through his policies. Under his leadership, the Palestinian Authority provides financial incentives to individuals and families of terrorists who commit acts of violence against Israelis. This policy is called pay to slay. There's no greater incentive to violence than cold hard cash, and that is what the Palestinian money supports. While the international community likes to pretend that the Palestinian Authority is a modern democracy, the PA continues to be anything but democratic. Abbas is an autocratic ruler. He has remained in power because he has prevented free and fair elections. The 88-year-old tyrant has been the PA boss since 2005, with political stagnation oppressing the Palestinian people. After 16 years, President Abbas called for elections in May of 2021. Campaigns were in full swing and voting sites were being mapped out when he canceled the May 22nd vote just weeks before it could materialize. And as usual, he blamed it all on Israel, saying it refused to allow East Jerusalem Palestinians the opportunity to vote. But nobody was buying it. Even other Palestinian factions like Hamas and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine spoke out against the injustice of Abbas's actions. Analysts believe the issue came from politics within Abbas's own Fatah party. Following the debacle, members of the Palestinian Legislative Council were arrested for any and all criticism of Mahmoud Abbas. In mid-November of 2023, just over a month after the October 7th massacre in which 1,200 people in Israel were brutally murdered and some 250 taken captive into Gaza, the Palestinian Authority's foreign ministry, under the direction of Mahmoud Abbas, dangerously distorted history again. It released a statement saying that it was not Hamas that attacked the Supernova Music Festival, but rather it was Israeli army helicopters that gunned down Israeli civilians on that terrible day. This was an obvious lie since Hamas terrorists filmed and proudly posted on social media the massacre they carried out. But that meant nothing to the propaganda machine of Abbas's Fatah party. Mahmoud Abbas's Palestinian Authority is obviously a danger to Israel. Nevertheless, he is being touted by the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden as the best available option to govern the Gaza Strip following the current war. Israel is opposed to having the Palestinian Authority take control of Gaza, and the reason is simple.
Mahmoud Abbas is not a partner for peace. He is a Holocaust-denying, murder-inciting terrorist. As long as he leads the Palestinian Authority, there will never be peace.
This would be a recipe for disaster because the aging Palestinian Authority president continues to support and encourage terror attacks against Israelis. Up next, the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Today I'm at Kibbutz Orim on an animal therapy farm. You see behind me a few of the horses the ICEJ has donated to enable children to come here for trauma therapy. The animal corner, the horses therapy area, it's all going to be expanded and renovated, and the ICEJ is a part of this special project. We invite you to come and learn more about it and join with us too.
Since 1980, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has been a voice of Christian support for Israel and connecting the global church to the land of the Bible. Headquartered in Jerusalem, the ICEJ has taken practical action to stand with Israel, such as helping Jews return to their ancestral homeland of Israel, caring for Holocaust survivors, providing bomb shelters for vulnerable communities, fighting anti-Semitism around the world, and inviting Christians to discover Israel for themselves.
שלום, אני עודד, אני מנהל את החווה פה באורים. אני מנהל את החווה הזאת משנת 2020. התחלנו במרץ 2020, בקורונה, והקורונה הביאה איתה הרבה אתגרים, ובגלל הסגרים פתחנו, סגרנו, ובסופו של דבר המשכנו, לא עצרנו. ובעצם המטרה פה היא לתת מענה מההתחלה, לתת מענה לאוכלוסייה ולקהילה פה במועצה האזורית אשכול ובמועצה האזורית שער הנגב, ואנחנו בעצם חווה טיפולית. המענה הוא מענה טיפולי, הוא תומך, הוא לעבוד עם ילדים עם קשיים, אם זה קשיים רגשיים, קשיים מוטוריים, זה היה ההתחלה, לשם זה הקמנו את החווה. ב7 לאוקטובר התחילה פה המלחמה. אנחנו כולנו פה מהאזור של העוטף, כולנו פה מכירים את האזור טוב, גדלנו פה, אני אישית מקיבוץ כפר עזה, והמשפחה שלי מכפר עזה, אז הטראומה, אנחנו מכירים אותה טוב מאוד, ממעגלים מאוד מאוד קרובים, וגם כל הצוות מהאזור, כל אחד מיישוב אחר. ובעצם בשביעי החווה נעצרה, נסגרה. היום ההתמקדות שלנו היא בטראומה, ואנחנו עוברים הכשרות לעבוד בטראומה. אנחנו, בכלל, כל החווה עוברת שינוי. אז פינת החי בעצם זה מקום שהוא כיום מקום לא טוב, ואנחנו רוצים מאוד מאוד לפתח אותו. אנחנו מאוד רוצים לקחת אותו ולהפוך אותו למשהו שהוא היה פעם מאוד יפה. אם זה מבחינת המתקן, שאנחנו רוצים לעשות מתקן טוב, מגרש טוב, סוסים טובים, אז זה גם משהו שאנחנו עושים, ואנחנו עוד פעם אני אגיד שאנחנו נעזרים באנשים טובים שתורמים ועוזרים לנו לפתח ולהקים את הדבר הזה. אני רוצה מאוד להודות ולהגיד תודה רבה גדולה לשגרירות הנוצרית שעוזרת ואיתנו. אפשר להגיד לך תודה.
After Hamas brutally attacked Israel on October 7th, 2023, the ICEJ has been actively standing with Israel and her people through advocacy and urgently needed aid projects. Now is the time for Christians to turn their love for Israel and the Jewish people into real action as never before. Your donation will help in various relief projects for families, businesses, and whole communities in this ongoing recovery process. You can help deliver bomb shelters to at-risk areas, provide necessary supplies for first responders, provide trauma care to those shaken by the conflict, and help the hardest hit areas renovate and rebuild their communities. Visit ICEJUSA.tv to donate online or call 1-800-910-6355 and give your generous gift today.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.